The alarm on Luna Station cut through the quiet night shift like a knife. Lieutenant Ji-hoon Park had been watching the deep space monitors for 3 years, listening to nothing but cosmic static and the occasional pulsar ping. Tonight was different. Tonight, something was screaming across the void. "What is that?" he whispered, adjusting the frequency controls. The signal was strong, deliberate, and definitely not natural. The waveform patterns danced across his screens in complex mathematical sequences that made his heart race. Within minutes, Commander Minji Kim burst through the monitoring station doors. Her uniform was hastily thrown on, and her hair was still messy from sleep, but her eyes were sharp and focused. She had been woken by the automatic alert system that triggered whenever Luna Station detected structured transmissions from deep space. "How long has this been coming in?" she asked, studying the scrolling data streams that filled multiple monitors. "Started 40 minutes ago," Ji-hoon replied, his fingers flying over the controls. "It's not random noise, Commander. This is organized, complex. Someone out there is trying to talk to us." The signal grew stronger as Earth's rotation brought more receiving dishes into alignment. What started as a whisper became a shout, then a symphony of alien mathematics and desperate emotion. Even without translation, the urgency was clear. This was not a greeting or casual contact attempt. This was a cry for help. Dr. Yunahayan arrived 2 hours later with her team of linguists and computer specialists. The elderly woman had spent her career preparing for this moment, developing translation protocols for first contact scenarios. But as she studied the incoming transmission, her excitement mixed with growing concern. "This isn't a simple message," she told Commander Kim. "It's massive. Star charts, technical specifications, military data, and underneath it all, ... double quotes." She paused, her face pale. "Underneath it all is pure terror." Across the galaxy, the dying Zephyrian coalition had made their final, desperate gamble. 12 peaceful species faced complete extinction at the hands of the Korvac Empire, a militaristic horde that consumed entire star systems like a cosmic plague. Their advanced technologies, designed for exploration and discovery, proved useless against an enemy that lived only for conquest and destruction. The Korvacs had already devoured 23 civilizations. They moved like locusts, stripping worlds of resources and enslaving any survivors before moving to the next system. The Coalition's scientists calculated they had perhaps 6 months before their last strongholds fell. Ambassador Lyra Thess had argued against the desperate plan. Broadcasting their location and military weaknesses to unknown species across the galaxy seemed like madness. But as Korvac bombardment fleets gathered around their homeworld, even madness looked preferable to certain death. "We know nothing about who might receive this," she had warned the Coalition Council. "We could be inviting something worse than the Korvacs." But Council Leader Vex had made the final decision with simple logic. "We're already dead. At least this way, we might save someone else from our fate." Back on Luna Station, Dr. Hyan's team worked through the night, their quantum computers struggling to decode the alien linguistics. Slowly, piece by piece, the message became clear. The translation that emerged sent chills through everyone who read it. "To any species capable of warfare, we offer all our knowledge in exchange for protection. The Korvac Empire consumes everything in its path. Our 12 worlds are dying. Our people are enslaved. Our children cry in languages the conquerors cannot understand. If you can fight, please help us. If you cannot fight, remember us when they come for you next. Our star charts show the path of destruction. Earth lies in their expansion route. Stop them at our worlds, or face them at yours. We beg you, someone must stand against the darkness." The message included detailed technical specifications of Korvac weapons, ship designs, and tactical preferences. The aliens had given away every military secret they possessed, hoping that somewhere in the vast galaxy, Someone would use that information to stop the Empire's advance. Fleet Admiral Doyan Lee received the decoded transmission at 0347 hours, Terran Standard Time. The grizzled old soldier read it twice, then immediately contacted Earth's military leadership. Within hours, emergency sessions convened in Seoul, New York, London, and Moscow. The implications were staggering. The alien star charts showed Krovac expansion following predictable patterns, consuming resource-rich systems in a direct line toward human space. The coalition worlds weren't just asking for rescue, they were offering to serve as humanity's first line of defense. This isn't charity, Admiral Lee explained to the assembled defense ministers. This is survival. We can fight them there, with advance warning and alien intelligence, or we can wait and fight them here in 20 years, when they're stronger and we're unprepared. The decision took less than 6 hours. Earth's response would shock the galaxy and change the balance of power forever. While peaceful civilizations debated and negotiated, humanity did what it did best. It prepared for war. The aliens who sent their desperate plea into the void expected complex diplomatic negotiations, perhaps a few ships offering limited assistance in exchange for massive concessions. They could never have imagined humanity's response to their cry for help, total war, delivered with mechanical precision and unstoppable determination across Earth's military installations. Orders went out to prepare the largest fleet in human history. 800 ships would carry death to an empire that had never learned to fear. The age of Krovac terror was about to end, though the galaxy didn't know it yet. The shipyards above Earth buzzed with activity like angry beehives. Captain Xian Ho Chang watched from the bridge of his dreadnought as hundreds of warships gathered in the staging area beyond Neptune's orbit. In 72 hours, humanity had assembled the largest military fleet in its history, 800 vessels of death, each one built for the single purpose that most alien species had forgotten: how to fight and win wars. His ship, the Resilience, was a monster of metal and weapons, stretching over 1 kilometer long. Its hull bristled with plasma cannons, missile tubes, and energy shields powerful enough to ram through asteroid fields. Around him, similar giants floated in perfect formation, 200 heavy cruisers that could crack planets, 350 destroyers built for speed and killing, 150 support ships loaded with supplies for a long campaign. "Sir," called Navigation Officer Yoonji Shin from her station, "the last squadrons just jumped in. Admiral Lee signals the fleet will depart in 30 minutes. Xian Ho nodded, studying the tactical displays that showed their enemy. The Krovac Empire had conquered 47 star systems using simple tactics: arrive with overwhelming numbers, terrorize the population, and crush any resistance. It worked perfectly against peaceful civilizations who had forgotten how to make war. The Krovacs had never faced humans. Across the fleet, 100 assault carriers prepared for a different kind of battle. Major In-seo Kim walked through the cramped corridors of the Striker, checking on his Marine battalions. These men and women had trained their entire lives for ship-to-ship combat in the cold vacuum of space. They wore powered armor that could survive explosive decompression, carried weapons that could cut through alien hull metal, and most importantly, they understood something the Krovacs didn't. Sometimes good people had to do terrible things to stop evil. "Listen up," Major Kim told his assembled troops in the main hangar. "The aliens who called for help have been fighting these Krovacs for months. They're losing because they don't know how to be killers. We do. When we board their ships, remember that every Krovac you put down is one less monster who can hurt innocent people." The Marines checked their weapons with practiced efficiency. Unlike the energy weapons most aliens preferred, human soldiers carried solid projectile guns, plasma cutters, and explosive charges designed to work in any environment. They had learned long ago that the best weapon was the one that worked when everything else failed. Commander Hannah Yu ran final systems checks on her destroyer Vengeance. The ship's experimental plasma lance could punch holes through battleship armor at long range, while its missile systems carried enough firepower to level cities. But the real weapon was her crew, 38 men and women who had trained together for 5 years, who could operate their ship like an extension of their own bodies. Weapon status, she asked her tactical officer. All systems green, Commander. Plasma lance, charging to full power. Missile tubes loaded with armor-piercing warheads. Point defense systems online. We're ready to hunt. The Krovaks used fear as their primary weapon. They would broadcast images of destroyed worlds to terrorize their enemies before battle even began. They painted their ships black and red, decorated them with skull symbols, and made sure every transmission carried screams of their previous victims. Humans had a different approach to psychological warfare. Their ships were painted in clean military colors, gray, white, and blue. No skull decorations or terror symbols. The message was clear. We're not here to scare you. We're here to kill you efficiently and move on to the next target, Lieutenant. Colonel Jun Hobik briefed his special operations teams aboard the command ship. These elite soldiers had one job: board disabled enemy vessels and capture their computer systems. While the Krovaks expected to face frightened civilians, they would instead meet soldiers who treated boarding actions like routine maintenance. Intelligence suggests the Krovaks keep detailed records of their military installations, he explained to his team leaders. We need those databases intact. Board fast, secure the command centers, and download everything before the ships self-destruct. Admiral Do-Yan Lee stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the final preparations. His fleet represented humanity's simple answer to the Krovak threat: find them, fix them in place, and destroy them completely. No negotiations, no mercy. Number survivors to carry word back to their empire. The alien distress signal had included detailed intelligence about Krovak tactics and technology. The coalition had observed their enemies for months, documenting their methods with scientific precision. They knew how Krovak ships fought, how their weapons worked, and most importantly, how they reacted when facing unexpected resistance. All ships report ready for departure, announced Communications Officer Minho Park. Every vessel is loaded, armed, and crewed. 800 ships carrying 40,000 personnel, ready for combat operations. Admiral Lee nodded slowly. The aliens who sent the distress signal expected perhaps a few ships, some limited assistance in exchange for their advanced peaceful technologies. They could not have imagined humanity's actual response: total war delivered with industrial precision. Signal the fleet, he ordered. Jump in 10 seconds. Time to show the galaxy how Deathworlders respond to bullies. 800 human warships vanished into hyperspace, carrying death to an empire that had never learned fear. The Krovaks were about to receive their first lesson in why peaceful species called Earth a death world, and why humans were the predators that other predators feared. The human fleet appeared at the edge of the Zephyrian system like death itself, materializing from the void. 800 warships dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation, their weapons already powering up as tactical computers identified targets. Captain Xianho Cheng watched his displays populate with enemy signatures. 400 Krovak vessels bombarding the planet below, while scattered coalition ships fled in panic. My God, whispered Navigation Officer Yunji Shin, staring at the tactical display. Look at the size of their invasion force. The Krovak fleet stretched across space like a black cancer. Massive bombardment ships rained death on the cities below, while smaller vessels hunted down fleeing civilian transports. Explosions bloomed across the planet's surface as ancient cities burned under alien fire. This was how the Empire worked. Total destruction, complete terror, absolute victory. They had never faced humans before. Admiral Lee, to all ships, crackled the fleet communication system. Weapons free. Show these predators how Deathworlders hunt. Ambassador Lyra Thess barely managed to send her greeting transmission before the humans opened fire. Her elegant science vessel Harmony shuddered as human destroyers streaked past at combat speed, their engines leaving trails of plasma in the darkness. She had expected diplomatic protocols, formal introductions, perhaps lengthy negotiations about payment and terms. Unknown vessels, she broadcast frantically. This is Ambassador Thess of the Zephyrian Coalition. We are the ones who sent the distress signal. Please, we must establish proper communication channels before any military action. Ambassador, interrupted a calm human voice. This is Admiral Dojan Lee of the Terran Defense Fleet. Move your ships to safe distance and let us work. The cultural shock rippled through both alien fleets. The Zephyrians had spent months preparing complex diplomatic proposals, offering their most advanced technologies in exchange for limited military assistance. They expected negotiations that might take weeks to complete. Instead, 800 human warships were already engaging the enemy. The Krovaks faced their own confusion. For decades, they had terrorized peaceful species who begged for mercy, offered tribute, or fled in panic. Their psychological warfare tactics were built around fear, broadcast images of destroyed worlds, make demands for surrender, watch entire civilizations collapse without firing a shot. But the human ships showed no fear, no panic, no desperate attempts to negotiate. The 800 vessels moved with mechanical precision, targeting Korvac ships with the efficiency of hunters who had found their prey. Commander Minji Kim coordinated the opening assault from her destroyer, Retribution. Her tactical officer, Lieutenant Ijin Oh, acquired target locks on 6 Korvac bombardment ships that were attacking civilian shelters on the planet below. Those ships are murdering innocents, she said quietly. End them. 6 plasma lances, fired simultaneously. 6 Korvac ships died in balls of superheated gas. The human fleet's message was clear and simple. Stop killing civilians, or we stop you permanently. The battle developed unlike anything in galactic history. The Korvacs expected their enemies to bunch together for protection, to try defensive formations, to broadcast surrender offers when the fighting got too intense. Every species they had conquered followed the same pattern. Humans fought differently. Their ships spread out in hunting packs, using speed and coordination to isolate enemy vessels. When Korvac captains tried to broadcast terror images, human ships simply jammed their transmissions and kept shooting. When enemy commanders demanded surrender, human weapons officers responded with missile salvos. Major Inseo Kim launched his Marines from the assault carrier Striker while the main battle raged around them. Korvac commanders had disabled several coalition vessels, planning to board them and take prisoners for their slave markets. They found human Marines waiting instead. Breach successful, reported Sergeant Daeun Lee over the combat channel. Enemy boarding party eliminated. Coalition crew is safe. The Marines moved through the ship's corridors with practiced efficiency. Unlike the Korvacs who relied on fear and brutality, human soldiers fought with cold professionalism. They were not here to terrorize or enslave. They were here to kill an enemy that threatened innocent people. Ambassador Thess watched the battle unfold from her command center, struggling to understand what she was seeing. The human fleet fought with a coordination that seemed impossible. 800 ships moving as one organism, each crew member knowing exactly what their role was in the larger plan. How are they doing this? Asked her tactical advisor, studying the human formations. No species fights with this level of organization. It's like they've been preparing for this exact battle their entire lives. The answer was simpler than any alien could understand. Humans had been preparing for this battle. Not this specific fight, but this type of fight. For thousands of years, humanity had been learning how to organize, coordinate, and execute military operations against overwhelming odds. They had fought each other across continents and oceans, developing tactics and strategies that peaceful species had never needed to learn. The Krovarak's terror tactics, so effective against civilizations that had forgotten war, were useless against a species that had never stopped preparing for it. When enemy ships tried to ram coalition vessels in suicide attacks, human destroyers intercepted them with precise plasma fire. When Krovak commanders threatened to execute prisoners, Marine boarding teams had already rescued the captives. "Sir," reported communications officer Chaewon Park from Admiral Lee's flagship, "we're receiving surrender offers from 17 Krovak vessels. They want to negotiate terms." Admiral Lee's response became legendary throughout the galaxy. "Tell them we don't negotiate with child killers. They can surrender unconditionally or die fighting. Those are their only options." The Battle of Zephyria continued with humanity teaching the galaxy a lesson that had been forgotten for too long. Evil has consequences, and sometimes good people have to do terrible things to protect the innocent. 6 hours after the first shot, the Krovak invasion force no longer existed. Captain Xianho Chang watched the tactical display show empty space where 400 enemy warships had been. Not a single Krovak vessel had escaped to carry word of humanity's intervention. The destruction was so complete that Ambassador Thess initially thought her sensors were malfunctioning. "All enemy contacts eliminated," reported Navigation Officer Yoonji Shin, her voice carrying a note of amazement. "Sir, in 6 hours, we destroyed an invasion fleet that the Coalition had been fighting for 8 months. The difference wasn't just technology or numbers. It was approach. The Coalition had tried to defend their worlds using scientific principles, elegant strategies, and minimal casualties. They built beautiful ships designed for exploration and discovery, then tried to use them as weapons when the Krovaks came. Humans built ships designed to kill, then used them exactly as intended." Major In-seo Kim led the boarding operations on disabled Krovak command vessels. His Marines moved through the alien corridors with methodical efficiency, while Coalition observers watched in stunned silence. The Krovaks had expected to face frightened scientists and peaceful diplomats. Instead, they met soldiers who treated ship-to-ship combat like routine maintenance. "Sir," reported Sergeant Daeon Lee over the communication system, "we've breached the command center of their flagship, accessing their strategic databases now. These records show 12 major military installations and 43 enslaved species, transmitting coordinates to the fleet." The intelligence treasure was beyond anything the Coalition had hoped for. The Krovaks kept detailed records of their empire star charts, military strengths, supply routes, and most importantly, the locations of every species they had conquered. What the aliens saw as military secrets, humans viewed as a target list. Ambassador Thess requested permission to come aboard Admiral Lee's flagship 3 hours after the battle ended. She expected to find exhausted warriors celebrating their victory, perhaps demanding immediate payment for their services. Instead, she found human crews already planning their next operations. "Admiral Lee," she said, entering the command center, where holographic displays showed the entire Krovak Empire. "Your fleet's performance was ... remarkable. We had calculated this battle would last days, perhaps weeks. How did you achieve such rapid victory?" The Admiral looked up from a tactical display showing Krovak military installations throughout the galaxy. His expression was calm, professional, showing none of the excitement or relief the ambassador expected. "Experience," he replied simply. "We've been fighting wars for thousands of years. This was just another battle." The cultural disconnect became apparent as human engineering teams began repairing Coalition infrastructure. Commander Hannah, Yu, coordinated the restoration of orbital defense platforms, while her crew worked alongside bewildered alien technicians. The humans approached the reconstruction with the same methodical efficiency they had shown in battle. "Your repair techniques are so different from ours," observed Coalition engineer Zack's story. Watching human teams cut through damaged hull sections with plasma torches. You fix things like you're preparing for the next attack. Because we are, replied Chief Engineer Min J. Park. These platforms need to survive combat, not just look pretty. We're reinforcing them with armor plating and adding weapon hard points. What the Coalition viewed as a miraculous salvation, humanity treated as routine military deployment. The real shock came when Admiral Lee requested detailed galactic star charts, not for navigation home, but for planning additional operations against Korvac installations. Admiral, Ambassador Thess asked carefully, surely your mission is complete. You've saved our worlds from invasion. What more could Earth want? Admiral Lee gestured to the holographic display, showing 43 enslaved species scattered across Korvac territory. Red markers indicated military installations, slave processing centers, and resource extraction facilities. Our mission isn't to save just your worlds, he explained. Our mission is to end the threat. Every day we delay, more innocents die in Korvac slave camps. Every week we wait, their military grows stronger. We finish this now, completely. The concept was alien to species that had spent centuries avoiding conflict. Humanity's approach to evil was simple and direct. Find it, surround it, destroy it, utterly. No negotiations, no partial victories, no leaving threats for future generations to handle. Communications. Officer Chaewon Park intercepted increasingly desperate transmissions from Korvac installations across their empire. Word of their missing invasion fleet was spreading faster than their ships could travel, creating panic in an organization that had never faced defeat. Sir, she reported to Admiral Lee, we're detecting mass evacuations from 17 military bases. They're abandoning forward positions and retreating to core systems. Good, the Admiral replied. Fear is an excellent teacher. They're learning that their actions have consequences. Lieutenant Colonel Jun Hobeek finished downloading the Korvac strategic databases and presented his findings to the command staff. The intelligence revealed the Empire's true weakness. They had built their entire military around terrorizing peaceful species, never preparing for war against an enemy that fought back effectively. Sir, he reported, their entire command structure depends on psychological dominance. When that fails, they have no backup plans. Their military doctrine assumes enemies surrender after the first few battles. The revelation explained everything. The Korvacs had conquered dozens of species, not through superior technology or tactics, but through superior willingness to commit atrocities. They had never developed real military skills because they had never needed them. Now they faced humans, a species that had spent millennia perfecting the art of organized violence, who treated warfare as both science and craft. The empire that had terrorized the galaxy was about to learn why peaceful species called Earth a death world, and why predators feared the apex predators. The age of Korvac terror was ending, one battle at a time. 3 months after the Battle of Zephoria, the Korvac Empire had been completely dismantled. Admiral Do-Yeon Lee's fleet moved through their territory like a surgical instrument, systematically eliminating military installations and liberating enslaved worlds. The operation that the galaxy expected to take years was finished in 12 weeks. Captain Xian Ho Chang stood on the bridge of the Resilience, watching the last Korvac stronghold surrender without a fight. The fortress that had once commanded fear across 3 star systems now broadcast desperate pleas for mercy to the human fleet surrounding it. Sir, reported Communications Officer Chaewon Park, the installation commander is offering complete surrender. He says they will release all slaves and provide full intelligence on remaining Korvac cells in exchange for their lives. Admiral Lee's response was transmitted across the galaxy within hours. The Korvac remnants had 2 choices: peaceful integration into galactic society under strict monitoring, or continued warfare against unlimited human military reserves. Most chose integration. The few who chose to keep fighting discovered that humanity's patience was infinite, but their mercy was not. The Zephyrian coalition faced an unexpected diplomatic crisis. Their rescuers refused payment, territorial concessions, or political influence. Every attempt to negotiate compensation met the same polite refusal from human diplomats. Ambassador Thess met with Admiral Lee one final time before the human fleet departed for Earth. She carried authorization to offer humanity anything the coalition possessed: advanced technologies, star systems, permanent military alliances, even cultural treasures accumulated over millennia. Admiral Lee, she began, spreading holographic displays showing the coalition's most valuable assets. Surely there must be something Earth desires in return for your intervention. We have technologies that could advance your civilization by centuries. Scientific knowledge that took us thousands of years to develop. The Admiral studied the displays with genuine interest, but shook his head. Ambassador, we appreciate the offer, but we didn't come here for profit. We came because it was the right thing to do. The concept was so alien that Ambassador Thess required her translation device to run the phrase through multiple linguistic filters. A species that treated interstellar warfare as community service, that crossed the galaxy to fight strangers. Battles without seeking reward was beyond her comprehension. Dr. Yuna Hayan, now serving as humanity's first xenolinguistic ambassador, worked with delegations from 43 newly liberated species. Each group asked the same question in different languages. Why had Earth intervened without seeking conquest or tribute? The answer became legendary across the galaxy, though most species needed decades to understand it. Humans viewed protecting the innocent not as heroism requiring reward, but as basic moral obligation. The strong defended the weak, because that's what civilization meant. You have to understand, Dr. Hain explained to a gathering of alien diplomats, on Earth, we have a saying, with great power comes great responsibility. We have the strongest military in the galaxy, so we use it to protect those who cannot protect themselves. The liberated species struggled with this concept. Most had never encountered a civilization that wielded power without seeking to expand it. The idea that military strength existed to serve others rather than dominate them was revolutionary. Lieutenant Ji-hoon Park established permanent monitoring stations throughout the former Krovac territory. His deep space arrays listened constantly for distress signals, ready to summon humanity's response to the next threat. The galaxy's first early warning system was born from a simple principle: evil should never again grow unchecked. Major In-seo Kim's Marines trained liberation forces on dozens of worlds, teaching former slaves how to defend themselves against future predators. The training was practical and efficient: how to organize militias, how to build defensive positions, how to turn civilian infrastructure into military assets when necessary. Remember, he told a group of former Krovac slaves, who were now learning to be soldiers, you don't have to be as strong as your enemy. You just have to be strong enough that conquering you costs more than it's worth. The economic impact rippled across the galaxy. 43 liberated worlds began trading freely for the first time in decades. Species that had hidden in fear ventured out to make contact with neighbors. The galactic economy, which had stagnated under Korvac terror, exploded into growth. Captain Siano Chang led the fleet's departure from the former Empire's territory, leaving behind a transformed galaxy. Human peacekeeping stations maintained order, while liberated species learned self-governance. The transition was not always smooth, but it was always supervised by soldiers who had proven they could end conflicts permanently. As the 8 ships of Admiral Lee's fleet jumped toward Earth, they carried reports that would reshape humanity's understanding of its place in the galaxy. They were no longer just another species among thousands. They were the Guardians, the ones other civilizations called when darkness threatened. Ambassador Thess established a permanent embassy on Earth, though she spent years trying to understand human culture. A species that treated galaxy-spanning military campaigns as routine civic duty challenged every assumption about power and civilization. "Your people confuse us," she admitted to Dr. Hune during one diplomatic session. "Every other species we know seeks to expand when it grows strong. Humans grow stronger to protect others. It's backwards from everything we understand about evolution and survival." Dr. Hune smiled, looking up at the stars visible through the embassy's transparent dome. "Maybe that's why we're still here, when so many others are gone. We learned that the best way to survive is to make sure everyone survives." The galaxy slept peacefully for the first time in generations, knowing that somewhere among the stars, the Deathworlders stood ready to answer the next call for help with overwhelming force and unwavering determination.